Hi, I'm Alice Towle and I'm the outgoing Bristol Youth Mayor who served a term of office from February 2020 to February 2022. I've also been a youth councillor for the last 3 years. Now I've been asked to kind of give my perhaps a bit of a unique perspective on the mayoral referendum that's going on right now and what this means for young people. But first, I guess we should kind of say what being a youth mayor involves. So being a youth mayor is a really key role within the city, and we're elected once we become part of the Bristol City Youth Council, which is a group of elected young people who are elected to represent the city, and it's kind of divided up into 3 areas, and you all have voted for this pretty recently. So we have youth councillors that are divided into the areas of North, South and East Central, and your school will all be in one of those areas, and you'll have youth councillors for those areas. And from that we elect 2 youth mayors and 2 members of youth parliament, and we kind of have a slightly different role. So not only are we youth councillors continuing to provide that more day-to-day campaigning and getting your opinions heard by the decision makers in the city, we also kind of represent the youth council on a bit of a bigger, wider scale. So for the members of youth parliament, that kind of means nationally working in the youth parliament, and for the youth mayors that kind of means within the city, within businesses, within organisations, within the council, working to ensure that your voice as a young person is heard. So sometimes on strategic boards, sometimes on consultation or new and really exciting projects. So it's kind of a very wide-ranging role. And at the moment the youth mayors do have quite a lot of contact with the directly elected mayor. So we will have a meeting with the elected mayor, currently Marvin Rees. We have a meeting with him once a month, and that's really exciting and not something every youth mayor gets to do across the country. And something really nice about Bristol is the fact that we have a meeting once a month. It doesn't really get moved, and every month we're able to sit down and have that conversation, have those hard discussions. I think from being involved in youth politics, you will find out quite quickly that there are lots of hard decisions being made in the city that you don't really understand the full nuance of until you're sat around the table that's making the decision. So it's really a great thing to be involved in. In terms of a directly elected mayor having an impact on the city, which was one of the questions I was asked to talk about, I think it's difficult to say because it kind of depends where you stand on the idea of Bristol as a city having elected mayors. I guess in terms of a city, it means that Marvin was elected by every single person in the city, and so in terms of a city thinking that someone represents them, I think this is the biggest impact that having a directly elected mayor has had on Bristol, because if you move to a more committee style model, what you're ending up with is one of the councillors who have been elected in kind of a smaller part of Bristol, they will be potentially the leader of the council. So they have been elected still democratically, but they've been elected by a kind of a smaller group of people, and then the councillors have all been elected on. So it depends how much you think having a direct say in who is the leader yourself is important to you. So I think that's probably one of the big impacts it makes, and also it does kind of slightly change how the decision making process in Bristol happens. So those I would say would be the 2 key impacts that it's had. What the next question was, has having a directly elected mayor made a difference to how young people in Bristol view politics? So I think that kind of comes into 2 things. How people view politics, I think it's probably made maybe some young people think about things more or have more of an idea of what's going on, because a lot of ideas are directly attached to kind of one person, to the mayor, which means when you're looking at things in the media and stuff, it's much clearer to see what's going on rather than committees and lots of different people making those decisions, because for better or worse a lot of media outlets will be calling the mayor out, and so it's kind of you can kind of see what's going on politically, it may be a bit clearer. But also I think it does have an impact on the way the youth council works. So we've got colleagues up and down the country as youth mayors who have a slightly different role, because they have a committee system with a Lord Mayor. So that means the youth mayor then kind of becomes more ceremonial, they're more in line with the Lord Mayor, and that's not for better or worse, but it does become slightly different when you're kind of more focused on the role of the Lord Mayor, so going to more civic events versus like elected mayor and doing more hands-on work within the council and the elected political side. So definitely be something, if we did move to a committee model, we'd have to look at how can we make sure that the youth mayors still stay integrated with whoever the council leader would be. my views on the upcoming referendum are kind of complicated because I really wish I had the answer, and I really wish I knew, and I really wish my 3 years involved in youth politics gave me a clear answer. But the more I read, the more I don't really know, and the more my view is that someone that understands it far better than I do needs to be stepping up and making resources and making it clear to young people what this referendum means. I have tried my hardest to read up as much as possible, but quite often it's lengthy documents on the council website, and that's quite hard to read and digest and understand, and I've tried and I don't think I fully understand. So I really hope that someone impartial, with a bit of political knowledge, can kind of step up and really disseminate this information for young people, because I think it's really important that young people understand what they're voting for. So currently, to my understanding, I mean, I've just said I don't understand it at all, but I would say I have a bit of a grasp. One of the key differences between a committee system and a directly elected mayoral system. So firstly, as I said, the committee system uses someone that is elected as a ward councillor, whereas the elected mayor is elected by the whole of the city. And then basically a committee system has lots of different people from lots of different parties making up committees in different areas, whereas at the moment the mayor kind of picks the cabinet, and it's kind of run more through him rather than with kind of the cross-party collaborative way that the committee system runs at the moment. I think there are pros and cons to each, and I would say that I think one of the best resources, and still a little bit maybe they're quite nuanced because they're coming from lots of different people with lots of different perspectives, is the Bristol Ideas essays about this subject, because there's lots of different people writing from lots of different perspectives. So I think if you want a really kind of good way of pros and cons that's maybe less factual, I think those essays are a really good place to start in kind of getting your understanding up. So my advice for everyone considering voting in May is to make sure you know what you're voting for. Make sure you understand the difference, whether that means you have to do a bit of research or read those essays or talk to your friends, talk to your parents. But I think the biggest thing is to make sure young people vote. This is going to be a decision that lasts with us for 10 years, so I think it's really important that the young people, it's our future, so we need to make sure that we're making the decision for our future, because we're going to have to live with it for a long old time. And kind of finally, one of the other things I was asked to talk about was the challenges that are facing young people in the city and what leadership I think will be needed to help address them. And I think the biggest problems are not being listened to, I guess, because quite often young people have the innovative ideas and the nuanced kind of new approach to things, and it's really easy to kind of get bogged down in the fact that sometimes I would say young people are the visionaries, and sometimes, yes, we might not be in a position where we understand exactly how to make that happen, but I think we need to just work towards facilitating that to happen for young people. So I'd just say 100% to just listen to young people and what they're saying. But also I think one of the biggest challenges we are going to face is COVID and COVID catch-up and how that impacts us, because we're not going to know how that's impacting us yet. So I think that's a really key point. So thank you for listening to my 2 cents on the referendum. Feel free to get into contact with the Youth Council if you've got any other questions about it. And I hope that everyone will make their voices heard and vote this coming May.